So the first thing I just show is starting the process of the role of the architect, questioning from a drawing or from a sketch that we did for this first building we designed in Hong Kong that is realized. We like this idea of the duality of the role of the architect, whether is he an artist or a builder, and whether he's creative or a practitioner or practical. Today, actually, some of the technical and environmental performance in the building construction shows more than ever than the contradiction in the architect's work between playing with different constraints and how we can elevate the debate, trying to bring a more holistic approach to our design. So if I show just this quick diagram, is to if we would be submerged by just rules or regulations, and we would pile all these constraints, in the end, what do we do? Do we come up with an approach that is just a piling of functional and constraints, and our role as architects is more a cosmetic role of doing a nice facade, and it's really up to the to subjective people to make a comment. So what we do in our studio through examples is trying to promote, for example, this is a building that we are designing currently for 30,000 square meter office building in Paris. And we know that tertiary buildings are most important greenhouse gas producers in France before housing. So, well, if you look at this Paris sites, trying to promote kind of a green belt, but actually it's quite difficult to feel it. So when you are in reality and you look at this condition, which is our site along the peripheric, we have a lot of constraints that are not in the regulations. It's pollution, it's noise, it's discomfort, it's also visual impact of where the building is going to sit. So what the architect is trying to do is to play with those natural aspects that are somehow in his hands to understand what is the best solution to make people live in a good environment. So what we came up with is, in a more holistic approach, is to find a morphology of a building that is addressing different ways according to context, orientation. If you look at this building, actually the facade along the peripheric is using a double facade system, not just for high-tech, but just to address the idea of actually, do you really want to have your office next to the peripheric? So why don't you put a step back and create a new space that is good for acoustic, but also create some more remote space that can be a place for people to meet. Also, what is the best place when you're along the peripherics to enjoy the city is actually either the last floors, and to have a really strong view on Paris, which is something that is actually orientating your design process. Also trying to understand the constraints of security, not to make it, for example, the fire access to the building, in this case, is allocated along to a future pedestrian bridge. So actually we use a constraint that is technical, but also to make something that is a continuity to the city somehow to cross the peripheric. And also, we feel that there is never enough nature in the city. So why in the manipulation of our building we cannot bring new terraces, new places for relax and for creating some nice environments, which in the end will promote also naturally some energy effect. So also looking at France and how is the energy consumption of a building in France calculated is often looking at technical aspect, lighting, cooling, heating, but is also not taking that much in account some of the things that are electrical goods, food refrigeration, cooking, office automation. Those are not completely implemented in the aspect of the French regulation. So to consider this building, we try to look not only at French rules, but we look also at labels that are somehow, sometimes often presetting the reglementation of tomorrow. And those labels are still based on the willful character of clients. So we try to look at the whole things that we have in hand to address some issues. such as the life cycle of building, for example. So in the particular case, life cycle of building for office space, we try to promote in this project the use of wood as a construction material, which is not so common in France and will come, I think, more and more. But it does address some things that will be a help or a promotion of a kind of long-term lasting building. Then in terms of holistic approach, we consider the building profit in different ways also as on a long-term sustainable design. For us is a way to avoid rapid kind of building obsolescence and looking at really back to the basic ideas of leaving the city and invest the public space through building. Well, a building can do that according to the context and to situation, but really a small attempt can help. Also creating this more connection between the city and the buildings through transparency and urban balconies I was mentioning. And also looking at the typical layout of each building, whether it's an office or housing, can we address some change on some shift in the typical layout, which is something we did in this building. So I will not come back with not a lot of time on this first proposal of using a space along the peripheric that I mentioned. But also looking at this example is how do we engage a discussion with our client to use the ground floor of an office block not just as just at another floor, but as a place where you can interact with the city and create new functions which make people who do not work in the building come in. So actually in this place we create a U shape connected to the city, but also we promote new services that will be able to encourage interaction between users and also people from the city, such as Fab Labs, bicycle clinic, and company concierge service, but also Repair Cafe, which are open. If you look at this progress perspective, so this is the view of the ground floor, and actually the entrance of the building is a courtyard. It's open. It's not a glass door. It's just open to the public. And once you enter into the building, this is the type of environment we're trying to promote, interaction between people. As I was mentioning in this design, we shifted also the typical cores of the building, vertical cores, security stairs on the peripheric of the building to promote the use of stairs and to promote the use of interaction. So creating those spaces, creating some stairs and creating some really nice views so that people can interfere. But also it does have to address also internal space, as we mentioned, which is not covered by regulation, is how do we create a place where we feel good, and how do we promote spaces that are not just a space to sell, but a space that can be promotion of also people to live well in a building. So very quickly, second building that we did is that we are designing currently is I'm showing example of everyday life buildings, because the office building, but also commercial center in France. We all know the commercial buildings. In our approach, again, we say how we can do a building that is supposed to be really big, to be connected to people, to be somehow addressing some issues of the environment of a larger territory, and to avoid creating what we know boxes of shopping malls of small units, by creating something, a place where people feel good. So we look at the global environment and try to absorb some of those elements, such as natural landscapes, such as also some of the inconvenience of the peripheric, to address and also some of the small cares of the village, to incorporate this in one single building. And we create this simple diagram because also I think the role of the architects is to be able to transmit intentions or ideas in a simple manner so that it can be a more wide understanding. So in this case, we said, well, actually the unity somehow is kind of in this environment is everybody is under the same sky, so we want to create a roof. We want to have more nature, but we want to be also a little bit protected, and we want to create a feeling of small scale. So we designed this project with the idea that implementing kind of ideas of sensation of feeling closer to nature, feeling closer to human interaction, and to not look as green as only a design aspect, but more as an example for business models of a retail project, because those are large projects, and how can we address those in a more advanced way? So, for example, in this aspect, we go also further than the BREEAM requirement, just by intentions that we share with all the team, with the client, with the people we work with. And I think that was mentioned before. How do we see our world today is, and we explain that we may be better to do what we do best, but we have to understand what we need to do to make good buildings that are shared by everybody. So today we are really at the center of the debate, us as architects, but we work with the best experts that are around the table to try to push the boundaries. So this is a kind of a typical layout of a team today to be able to promote good ideas, which will be good for future environment of a building. So I won't go in detail, but again. Why I show you this roof that we call the cloud. It's not just because we want to do a nice cloud building, it's also because we want to try to promote something that design can address many issues, and choosing the right materials to address those issues. We have also the highway, so how our shell somehow will protect from the highway, or it will address pollution, or it will address transmission of light, or it will protect a roof gardens that will be also accessible from all people on the different floors, and how can we redistribute this energy in the building, whether the client is not asking for it, but we are just proposing it because it seems natural to us. So we play with looking at the morphology of the building, really the condition of what can bring a green patio at the center of the building. We play with creating a link, natural ventilation from the top to the building until the parking garage that is below. We increase some visual aspect, and this is a visual of the design that is somehow some kind of consequence of a strategy. I think that maybe the most the major point I like to make in my point of view as an architect is that of course we all have aesthetic ideas, but today we are more driven by trying to combine aspects of what I call human nature, is trying to promote constraint of a client, cost efficiency of a building, but also to merge it with a place where people going back to the basics somehow with interaction, sense of connection to the light and nature. So I think how much time I have? So just quickly, because this is more like I showed two design process projects, and those are projects that we realized. And actually, just have to say that this was made like in 2009, where it was kind of the first low consumption energy building as an education building. And I just going in the same. I would just show and say the same thing that I said before, just showing examples. Is that how do we do this project? We look at massing, and to obtain the best value of the project and the best quality for kids is really how do we create these massing studies that is allowing for a good connection, a good intimacy, a good connection to green environment, and somehow as a consequence, it's not so difficult to address technical issues. So of course it's very technical. So in this case, we had to also to promote for, what do I call it? Well, basically there is a management that is centralized for the energy, which allows also end users to be able to adjust somehow the general climate of the building. But it's not only about figures, it's also about quality of space. This is in a neighborhood which is considered as a bit tough, and the most aspects that you bring in terms of light or in terms of even of width of corridor will affect the quality of people, the way they live in the buildings. This is the resource space for kids, which is a place of reunion, and also addressing some of those issues. And also, even so, these typical education buildings need to be quite thermally well sheltered, we address also issues of being connected to the city and not creating a place where you are introverted. So for this building, what we propose is also to promote individual control of the building. So actually in each classroom, the teacher adds some like a green light or red light to say, well, is my building at the right temperature? So, and also there is a notebook for every classroom. So there is a certain sense of education in the building and also awareness. There was one of the questions also addressed is that is it good really to have super technology to control all the things, or to also continue to alert on the individual control and awareness of the conception of the building. And I just end with this project. It's a mixed-use project in north of France, where again addressing very simple issues, footprint of the building. How can we address a footprint of a building in the city and to bring back nature into a building, even so it's a mixed use, it's pretty dense. And again, also playing with architecture, not just a piece of design, but also addressing the right amount of openness in the building according to function, to orientation of the building, to create a whole in a building that is somehow seen as a place of a more clever building somehow. Also, something that was not required by regulation, we promote in this building. As you can see on the left, it's office tower. On the right, it's residential block. And in the middle, we created what we call a greenhouse. A greenhouse that is not just for the ice, but a greenhouse that is on the southwest of the building, that is collecting warm air and reinjecting into the system of the building to reduce the air consumption. So this is the building that is built today. And actually, it's a very simple system. It doesn't cost much money, and it's actually bringing also awareness into the city, because from the street you say, oh, you can understand how it works, and I think it's promoting like a passive solution that is very simple and can be also incorporated into the design, and not just seen as a technical aspect to top off a building if we want to try to target regulations. So I guess I don't have try to rush. I just wanted to illustrate a few of those aspects through buildings, and the fact that I think it's a question of also culture of architects and culture of clients to share same values and to have the ambition to do better buildings, and not to just respond to regulation, which is somehow quite easy.